guys, welcome back to another episode of All the Way In. I'm so excited to finally be back, and for my very first guest, Katie. This week's episode is all about social media, NIL, building a brand, and so much more. So Katie, welcome to All the Way In.
Thank you. I'm excited to be here.
Do you want to start with just telling us a little bit more about yourself?
Sure. My name's Katie Moore. I'm from Olathe, Kansas. I run track and cross country at the University of Iowa, and I'm a senior this year.
I was really excited to have you on because you have a pretty large following on TikTok and Instagram. You have a lot of experience with NIL. So let's start with like a few of the deals that you have going on right now, and then we can kind of start from the beginning of your journey and like got to how you've gotten to where you are now.
Sounds good. Yeah. NIL's definitely been a great opportunity for me and for other athletes. And so I've been really grateful that I got the opportunity to be in college at the same time that they passed all the NIL laws and stuff. So right now I'm doing a lot of work with like Post Game and 98 Strong. They're two like NIL platforms.
Okay.
And usually they have like campaigns where they submit you to brands and you do like a short campaign with them and that kind of thing. And so recently I did one with Hey Dudes and Gillette and
Like the razor brand?
yeah.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah, they just did one. And then yeah, there's just like a bunch of deals they have going on. So I like those outlets because they just kind of do all the work for you. And yeah, and if you don't like the deal, you don't have to accept it. So
That's cool. So
yeah.
how did you get connected with those then?
A lot of them will like message me and they'll say, "Hey, we're this NIL platform," and they have like an app or a website, and you like create an account, and
Okay.
yeah, you kind of link all your social media and stuff, and
That's cool.
yeah, it's been cool.
Okay, so your freshman year is when you blew up for the first time, right, on TikTok?
Yes, yeah.
Okay, so then let's kind of start back from there. So take me back to your freshman year.
Oh gosh.
It's COVID going on, right?
Yes, yeah. COVID was going on. I was a freshman in college. It was kind of a time where we were all figuring ourselves out. Obviously, freshman year is kind of like that for everyone. And it was before the NIL stuff passed because they passed it in, I think, July after my freshman year, like 2021. So I was just kind of like messing around on TikTok and stuff and making videos before meets and stuff in my jersey. And like people just seemed to kind of like take hold on it. And I don't know, it kind of started with a couple like viral videos. And then I realized like later on when they passed NIL that people like cared about the athlete perspective and you can use it to your advantage to like push your message or, you know, just make money or, you know, have fun with stuff. It's cool. Yeah.
So your NIL passed when you were a junior or sophomore?
Sophomore. It was
Okay.
like, well, going into sophomore year. Yeah. So yeah, it was the summer before, like I think July. And I think the first brand that reached out to me was like this teeth whitening company on my Instagram. And I don't even know if they like really knew I was an athlete, but I was like, oh, well, I can like do something with them now because it's legal.
Right.
Like before we really, I don't think we're allowed to do anything, even if it wasn't related to like our name as an athlete. Like, I don't think we were allowed to do any sort of like
Like,
money like
paid or
that.
anything.
Yeah. So it was
So
cool.
At that point, did you start taking social media more seriously? Like, oh, okay, I can actually like build a brand with this. I can start making money at this instead of just like, yeah, I'm posting this random TikTok like for fun.
Yeah, it definitely changed it a little bit. I feel like you have to kind of still be true to, you know, the funny videos you want to make or, you know, yourself. You can't just post something to make money or whatever. You have to stay true to your brand.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, like once I realized, oh, like this can be kind of a side hustle, and I put more effort into like making quality content and things. So because brands want to see that, and yeah.
Has it been hard to like kind of now have to think through the content that you're putting out and like actually put a lot of effort towards it versus before? Like obviously you didn't really think through it that much, but then obviously you're balancing school and being an athlete on top of it. Like how do you find the time to do that?
Yeah, that's a great question because we are really busy as student athletes. And a lot of the brands like expect a certain amount of posts or certain quality of things. And so it's kind of like stressful sometimes because you want to do a good job. And if you want to work with them again, too, especially, then they want the campaign to succeed. So like it's hard to find time, especially since like a lot of times we're free at night and like I mean, it's not nice outside, posting stuff. There's no lighting. Yeah. So it's just a lot of like time management, which we already practice as student athletes in general. So just making the time for it. And if you need extra time, like being a good communicator is important. But yeah.
What do you like to find your inspiration from?
That's a good question. I feel like I like following other athletes and seeing what they're doing, how they do NIL, and I find inspiration from that. And a lot of times I'll see someone do something, I'm like, oh, that was really creative, how they like integrated the product or clothing into their everyday life. Like it didn't look like an ad. Right. Like they authentically are like showcasing it how it's supposed to be shown off instead of just kind of like, oh, this is obviously like for money or whatever.
I feel like that's so hard to do. Like I've never like done an ad or anything before, but like even just watching videos, you like watching like, oh yeah, this is just like an ad video. Like making it genuine and seem like you actually like the product and use it, I feel like is so difficult.
Yeah, no, that's for sure. That's been a challenge for me and something I've like been working on because I will sometimes genuinely like a product and I don't promote anything I don't genuinely like, but it sometimes just looks fakey if they have like a very specific idea of what they want your video to be or picture or whatever. And so, but it's not always like true to how you would do it. So it's difficult like that.
That's the other thing, like balancing what does the brand want versus like, okay, this is who I am. This is the kind of content I create and like meshing those together. Because are you like doing all the communicating with the brand? Or is someone else like helping you do that too?
That's a good question. A lot of times it will be just me, but I recently like signed with this attorney who represents NIL athletes too, and so he'll reach out to brands as well, and he's very good at communicating with them and negotiations. So a lot of times like he knows that I like to be authentic, and so he'll get deals that are a lot more creative freedom than sometimes they're more structured. But yeah, so that's been helpful too. But it's hard on your own, if you're first starting in NIL to kind of navigate that, like know what you're worth and not get scammed by anyone or just communicating with brands. Like it's just a totally foreign land, and I think brands are still figuring it out because it's still growing. Like NIL is still growing so much.
Yeah. Well, I think it's crazy too because like if you've never worked in this field before, which like I feel like most people who are in it, even like regular social media people who aren't athletes, like how are you supposed to know how much, okay, I need to charge X amount for this video? Like how are you supposed to know any of that? And I feel like most of the times brands take advantage of that and they're like underpaying you for, especially as athletes, we don't have that much time. So it's like our time is more valuable than other people's.
Yeah, no, that's a really good point, especially since, like you said, it's not like our full-time job. Our full-time job is school and our sport. So this should, in my opinion, take precedent over those two things. So like it's kind of finding a way to make sure you like accept the deals that align with your brand and that don't take away from anything you're doing in your main focus. So yeah.
What do you think has been the biggest factor of like you being able to grow your audience on TikTok and then also like transfer it over to Instagram, because you have a pretty large ratio of following between TikTok and Instagram, which I feel like is pretty rare for a lot of like TikTok famous people?
Yeah, that's a good question. I feel like I don't know exactly if a lot of people follow me on both or if it's like a different group. So I'm not exactly sure, but I would say a lot of times there's like news outlets and stuff that will like take people's videos, and whether that's like a good thing or a bad thing, but then you'll get exposure from it. So if they like repost your stuff on their platform, it'll like, and that's generally on Instagram, so they'll like follow. Sometimes I'll post my TikTok on Instagram, and then my Instagram will get follows because they posted it on that platform. So yeah, but yeah, it's an interesting question. I'm not really sure. Yeah, that's
How
funny.
do you balance like your demographic being like largely male? I'm assuming, as I'm sure most females can relate to you with that,
Yeah.
and then like trying to figure out and establish like your brand still, and like this is what I want to do, and I still want to be able to inspire younger girls and athletes, but like your audience is not that demographic.
Yeah, no, that's an excellent question. I feel like that is a challenge with female athletes in particular because we want to get recognized for, excelling in our sport or in like balancing being a student athlete and the lifestyle we live, but that's not always the following we receive. And, it's a known fact that women's sports aren't as broadcasted or watched, viewed, like monetized, that kind of thing. So it's hard. I mean, if I was little, I would want, college athletes to look up to and be like, oh yeah, I want to be exactly like her one day, like running in college, doing all this stuff, or, playing soccer in college, or you name it. So it's just hard because I do want to target to a specific audience, and sometimes the videos that I make that I'm targeting towards the audience I want don't get as many views because I guess I don't know if there's not as much of a market for that or what. So it's kind of like the sad reality, but yeah.
No, I think it's interesting because, I mean, part of the reason that I even started this podcast was to, like, have that person for people to look up to, because I never had that. But I think it's so cool with NIL and social media and all the opportunities that we have now as athletes to be able to create that, like, space and community for other girls and younger athletes to, like, look up to and have that person.
Yeah, that's great. I'm really glad you're doing that because I feel like that is an underdeveloped area, and there is a lot of people. I feel like especially Iowa that are like working to change that. So that's great, especially athletes.
Okay, so I want to talk to you a little bit about mental health too, because I know that's something that you've gotten into a little bit more and just promoting on your social media as well, which I think is amazing. So what does like that kind of look like as a track and field athlete, and like what kinds of things do you focus on promoting on social media with mental health?
Yeah, that's a great question. I feel like that is something I've been trying to promote because mental health was like a very foreign topic to me, like prior to college. And, I kind of knew about like seeing therapists and stuff. But I thought that's like if you had really serious, concerns or stuff like that. Like I didn't think someone like me would ever be in therapy. And, it's like crazy to think about how much your life changes when you go from high school to college. It's such a huge adjustment, and being away from home, new people, and especially like adding athletics on top of that is just crazy amounts of stress. And the comparison, like usually college athletes are like the star at their high school or from their area, or one of the best at least, and then coming to college it's like you're pretty much average compared to everyone because everyone is insanely talented, works just as hard, and it's like a big adjustment. So I had like a lot of added anxiety like since my freshman year, and I had never experienced like pre-race anxiety before. And like not once in high school. Like I would get nervous, but like it was nothing to this degree. And it would just make me absolutely hate going to meets and competing. And I would just, I don't know, I would feel so nauseous like the whole week before a race. And I would get on the line and I'd have such brain fog and like mental fatigue that I was not ready to go, not in it at all. So like I started seeing sports psych my sophomore year of college because my mom like finally made me do it because I kept like complaining about how anxious I got. And she said like, well, you have these services, so use them. So I always like push for people to use those resources if they have them, or find someone to open up to, because it's super important. Like we train so hard our physical game and we don't focus anything on mental really. Like we're just told to be tough and push through, and that's not always like the easy answer. But
I agree. I think coming to college has made me realize like how important the mental side of things is, and like everyone here is like physically there, but I feel like the biggest separator between people is like you're either mentally doing good and like you have that figured out, or you're struggling, and like that's eventually going to separate you from everyone else. And like you can, just a difference between people who have like figured the mental side of their sport out and the people who haven't, and like those people don't really succeed.
Totally. That's so true. And it's just like, I feel like it's getting better. There's less like stigma around mental health now. So that's always good. But I feel like it is still hard for people to, come forward and feel comfortable doing that. Like opening up to maybe possibly a stranger that even if it's a professional, it's like so foreign to them. But it can really make a difference. So I always try to like make it comfortable for people on my platform to like, be like, you know what, it's okay to not have it together, and it's okay to ask for help. So I just want people, young girls, like everyone watching, that like, it's okay to not have it figured out and to need help with that. And we're taught so much independence, but it's sometimes we need extra support. So
I think it's so important too that you do talk about mental health and stuff, and I think it's gotten more popular among like college athletes talking about it. But I just feel like there's such like a stigma that other people have around college athletes, that like you are such this privileged person and you have like all this going on in your life, and you don't, like, why are you complaining about whatever? Like, you've got all this amazing stuff going on, and you're like, from the outside it's so hard to see in, but people just don't realize like it's so hard. Like, it really just takes the biggest toll on you mentally, and you don't it's just impossible to realize and know until you're actually in it, and you're like, oh my gosh.
Yeah, no, it's totally.
It's crazy.
That's such a good point. Yeah, I do feel like obviously as athletes we're very privileged. We live a great life, like being able to do our sport and, be in school, like sometimes get help with school by doing it, and we get a lot of cool opportunities. But like you said, it does take a toll, and sometimes we're so like mentally exhausted that we don't see the benefits because we're miserable. We feel miserable. So I mean, that's why I like talking to sports psychology like helped me keep things in perspective and like keep everything balanced in my life and like maintain my mental sanity. And so
I think balance is honestly the biggest thing. I've struggled with that. We're starting to figure that one out, but
no, it's tough.
So hard. No, but I love that you talk about that. That's really amazing.
Oh, good. Oh, thanks.
Okay, I want to talk about move on to NIL a little bit more. We can talk a bit more about that, but I want to first talk about the differences between male athletes and female athletes, because I don't think people really realize that there's a big difference between the two. And I think people just think like, oh yeah, you guys all have NIL now, so everyone's just getting deals left and right, and it's just like this big money thing that like everyone has access to, when in reality it's not at all like that. So what has your experience been with like as a female doing NIL and social media compared to like your male counterparts that you know?
Yeah, that's a great question. I feel like inevitably there are differences between male and female athletes, because there's differences between male and female sports and, the audience demographic, all that. And so I feel like there has been a pretty big imbalance in NIL, just because, there is a lot of the platforms that offer NIL opportunities, I feel like do a good job of like evenly distributing the deals. So that's a plus. But I feel like a lot of times female content creators that happen to be athletes and searching for NIL deals like are less likely to get a deal than someone just with like the male athlete status, because I feel like statistically females pose more than males. But on the other hand, I feel like the scale is a little imbalanced with the NIL, and someone could get a deal even if they don't create as much content just because like they're a male athlete of this sport, or certain sports, certain schools, stuff like that. So it's definitely not an equal thing, but there's some differences.
I think people like don't realize, like in my mind, it's like if you're gonna be a female athlete and you want these NIL deals, you have to have like a really solid social media presence. You have to have a large audience because otherwise, I mean, unless you're literally Caitlin Clark, like you're not,
Yeah, seriously.
you're not gonna get any NIL deals. And the reality of it is like she's just a 1 in a million type of athlete, like men or women, and no, like women's sports just doesn't get that much attention, and I think it's growing, which is amazing, but it's just like a different level. Like
Yeah.
you said, like, it's crazy.
It is interesting to think about. And I feel like a lot of times in, I don't know, like the beauty and lifestyle world, like most influencers are women, like for the most part, from what I've seen. But yeah, I feel like in the sports world, it's just, well, like I feel like a lot of the top earners are male too.
Yeah.
Because, and a lot of them are going to like the NFL, the NBA, things like that. So, but a lot of times, like there is something about, there's only like 2% of college athletes that go on to like pro sports.
Yeah.
So that's kind of something that 98 Strong, that platform, pushes, because they say like they're there for the 98% that like can only make money in college. So I think that's a good thing, because it is rare. Like it's rare to move on to collegiate athletics, and then from there it's an even smaller percentage of us that move on to like pro sports. And at least for the running world, like pro running is not monetized like hardly at all. Like it's very, very difficult to make money like in a living off it.
Yeah, unless you're like a big Olympian, you probably are not really making much.
Yeah, no, exactly. Like there is this incredible athlete that he has been running pro since he graduated, I think like 10 years ago from Iowa, but he still has to have a regular job because on top of being a pro runner, and like he's, for people that know running, he's broke a minute and 50 seconds in the 800 over 200 times, but he still has to have another job on top of being a pro athlete, because it's just like the market. It's just interesting, like the different sports, what's watched, what's paid for, and that kind of thing. So it's just a tough world. Like, you know, it's inconsistent, and it's not always reliable. Like we rely on our bodies being healthy and that kind of thing to excel. But I guess that's kind of unrelated, but like going on a rant tangent. Yeah.
No, I think too, like kind of going off that, I think like being at Iowa especially, we have an advantage as female athletes, and I hope that they can continue to kind of like grow that and help us in that area, because I feel like the biggest thing for universities is like, how can you get more people watching your female athletes and like invested in women's sports? Because like you said, like somebody on the football team who doesn't post at all, like doesn't give a crap about social media or anything, like they'll be getting all these NIL deals, and like they'll make a ton of money because people care, people watch, people are like invested in that person. But it's like, if you're on the soccer team here, like no one cares unless you have, you know, 1 million followers on TikTok, then people will start caring. But it's just different.
It is crazy, the differences. And like you said, someone that's not as active and getting deals. It's interesting how brands pick who to promote their brand, or their brands and product and everything. So
I want to talk a little bit more about just your experience as a female and NIL, and like kind of your experience here at the University of Iowa as well, because I do think we have a really big advantage over other female athletes at other schools, just with, you know, the obvious Caitlin Clark.
Yes, yeah. I feel like Caitlin's doing a lot of great things for women's sports. Like, she's incredible at her sport. I admire her so much and everything, and she's very poised, and I feel like she's just setting the way for NIL too, and I feel like it's going to inspire a lot more people to capitalize on their skills in their sport. And I don't know, it's just I do feel lucky to go to Iowa, because with an athlete like that, and just kind of with her brand and who she is, and it's just very cool to me.
Well, I feel like it's a big advantage too for other sports, because I think our university is also seeing, like, when they do really invest in their female athletes, there is like opportunity for return. And like, you look at our men's and women's team, like our women's team sells out every single game.
Yeah.
Our men's team does not.
Yeah.
Like, everyone here wants to watch the women play basketball. They sold out, Kinnick Stadium. Like, that was literally insane.
That was so cool.
It's such, like, an amazing opportunity that we get, and I just hope that the university, like, can continue and invest in our other programs.
Yeah, no, definitely. I feel like that would be great for everyone. And yeah, like you said, the women, it's just, they're incredible to watch. And I think people are starting to realize, like, yeah, this is something we want to see.
Oh, yeah.
And they're taking their kids, and I can't believe it was like, whatever, it felt like -30 the other day. And they said there's 15,000 fans at the game still. So, I mean, it's not like they're just waiting for the perfect day. Like, they want to go and watch. So
yeah, no, it's crazy. That was so amazing. Thank you so much for coming on. I really liked getting your perspective as a track and field athlete here, and just your perspective on social media and NIL. I think it was really interesting and beneficial for the audience. So thank you so much for coming on.
Oh, well, thank you. I had such a fun time. This was really great talking with you more about NIL and my experiences, and just talking about being a female athlete. It was just great. I had fun.
Well, thank you guys so much for watching. I'm so excited once again to be back, and I'll see you guys next week.